The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai was released in cinemas in 1984, but did you know it also got a video game based on the movie? Well, this sounds like the perfect opportunity to begin a brand new series on the weird world of licensed games. Unlike my video game Odyssey series, where I play through all the games in a particular franchise, here I'll be taking a look at the one-shot specific games based on a film, TV show, or the like. Okay, let's strap ourselves into our rocket car and get started. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension is an odd film, and it's one of those features that genuinely polarises its audience. Some love it, others hate it. Let's briefly take a look. The film introduces Buckaroo Banzai, a brain surgeon, test pilot, physicist, and international rock star, who must save the world from the evil alien race, the Red Lectroids. Accompanying Buckaroo are his band and sidekicks, the Honk Kong Cavaliers, featuring such classic characters as Perfect Tommy, he's perfect, you know, and Dr. New Jersey, played by Jeff Goldblum. If all of this sounds like an absolute load of nonsense, then you're pretty right, but that's kind of the point. You're being thrown into this world with characters with well-established backstories that you don't know, much like you being introduced to a superhero without knowing any of their lore. The film is, I suppose, a parody of sci-fi superhero films, but it plays it straight throughout the entirety of the film. There's no side-eye towards the camera or straight-up humour that signals to the audience that everything that is going on is poking fun at the genre. The only real exception is the recurring joke that all of the aliens are named John, and the constant mispronunciation of John Big Booty, portrayed by Christopher Lloyd. Or maybe the film isn't a parody, it's just doing whatever the hell it wants with no regard to typical cinematic structure. Any critique you could mount against the film could easily just be interpreted as a critique of the genre that the film is teasing out. The story is overly complicated, but maybe it's just poking fun at science fiction films bloated with technical jargon, for example. Being W.D. Richter's directorial debut, having only been a writer previously, there is a certain inexperience that hinders the flow of the film, as you often don't know where you are in relation to anything else. Overall, it deserves its polarising nature. You're either going to enjoy the wild ride with no regard for any explanation, or you'll just end up bewildered at what the hell is going on. One thing nearly everyone can agree on though, the end credits scene is one of the best in cinema ever. So, after the release of the film, in the same year, we got The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, a video game released for MS-DOS, Apple II, Atari 8-bit, Commodore 64, and ZX Spectrum computers. The game's instruction manual gives us the backstory to the game, which takes place just after the events of the film. The President of the United States calls up Buckaroo to alert him to a new threat. Just before the Lectroids return to their home planet, they planted a nuclear device in the middle of a mountain in Arizona. Given that the device is too far within the mountain to reach before it goes off, Buckaroo Banzai is enlisted to use his rocket car, which can travel through the 8th dimension and through solid matter, to get inside the mountain and defuse the bomb. Alright guys, let's save Arizona! So this is your classic text parser game. We're going to have to type out instructions for Buckaroo Banzai to collect items and go wherever needs going. So we're starting in a Yoyodyne office, the company which was a front for the Lectroids in the film. We can see some stairs going down to a basement in which it is too dark to see, and a table which is apparently strange because it's empty. Okay, well, going out into town, we can see a number of places around town we can explore and grab items. Heading north, we find our rocket car from the film. Now that I'm looking at it, doesn't it remind you of the DeLorean from Back to the Future? Maybe converting a car into a dimension-travelling sci-fi machine was an inspiration somehow. Anyway, we can find a note inside the car that tells us how to make the special jet fuel needed to power it and transport inside the mountain, because of course it doesn't come fueled. We need gasoline, sand, bauxite, and a special catalyst. Well, sand is easy to get from the beach, and we can get gasoline from the gas station using the fuel hose we take from the car. Now we get into some of the more far-fetched puzzles we need to solve. To get the bauxite, we need to climb the mountain, but to do that we need some rope. How do we get some rope? Why, we just need to get a pickaxe, go out into a field, and dig up some telephone wire. Yes, that seems like a logical progression of events. Either way, we can now climb the mountain, or can we? Apparently not, because we can't climb and have items in our inventory. Which when we get to the top of the mountain, we can't get the bauxite out of the ground without the damn pickaxe. The solution is to actually tie the pickaxe to the wire, climb up, and then pull up the wire to get your pickaxe back, which is unnecessarily overcomplicated. I mean, I suppose it makes sense, but there's just no indication that you should even try such a thing. Next, we have to find our special catalyst, which is in the Yoyodyne office we started in. You should have picked up the flashlight after searching a house in town, which you needed to do so you could get your gasoline anyway, so you can head down the stairs and light up the darkness in the basement. It was here that the Commodore 64 version bugged out on me and refused to light up, so I had to switch to the Atari 800 version. Apparently, you can still do what you need to do even though it's dark, but I didn't realise that when I played through, so we'll see the Atari 800 version from this point on. The game was also released for MS-DOS and the ZX Spectrum as mentioned, with all the versions being the same aside from some slightly different graphics, or none at all if you play the ZX Spectrum version. Okay, back to where we were. Downstairs, we light up the basement, and if we look under the stairs, we find our special catalyst. Now that all that's left to do is to mix all the components we've collected, and we've finally got our jet fuel. Let's head back to the car and fuel it, reconnect the fuel hose we took earlier, get in the car, close the cockpit, power it up, and here we... oh. We seem to have blown up and possibly initiated the rapture? There's a few ways to die in this game, whatever the hell just happened, which we'll deal with in a moment. You can walk to the south of town and get on the highway, on which you get stuck and have to walk up or down until a bomb explodes. RIP Arizona, I guess. The bomb also has a timer in that it will detonate after a certain number of actions. Fortunately, this number is quite high, so it's not really a concern. You can also soft lock the game by having the battery on the flashlight run out, or having the fuel hose fall into the gasoline tank without properly attaching it. Okay, so why did we get blown to pieces when we started the car? Honestly, this might be the most obtuse part of the game. There's no way you would work this out. Remember we took the fuel hose from the car to get the gasoline we needed, right? It turns out that you need to wash the hose before you use it to put the jet fuel in, as this causes a bad reaction and the car to explode or something. The game gives you no indication of this. The only clue you get is if for some reason you examine the fuel hose after you used it to get the gasoline. The game will tell you it's dirty. That's it. There's no indication that this is what's causing the car to explode. Let's go ahead and wash it in the shallow lake in the north, and now put in our jet fuel. Get in the car, close the door, turn it on, and it works! We drive out into town and drive straight into the mountain, or through it I suppose. Arriving inside the pitch black mountain, we'll have to use our flashlight where we'll see the bomb. Finally, there's a switch and an envelope here. This is an odd place to leave an envelope I suppose, but let's flick that switch first, which tells us that the RFI shield is now off. The instruction manual told us that the bomb was giving off radio interference, so now that the shield's down, it can accept radio transmissions, perhaps including a disarm code. We can now leave the mountain via a mineshaft, which collapses behind us as we leave. Goodbye car, I guess. And inside the envelope there is a key. Now, where does this key go? This is probably the second hardest part of the game, after that debacle with the fuel hose. Remember way back when we started the game? In the Yoyodyne office with the table that was suspiciously empty? Well, apparently if you look under the table, you will find a safe. There is absolutely no reason to think of looking under the table. The fact that the table doesn't have any papers on it is not a clue to doing that. So, inside the safe, we find a sheet of paper with two transmission instructions, Warfin and Yoyodyne, Warfin being the name of the villain in the film. At some point in your travels, you perhaps found the radio in the lifeguard shack and connected it to the antenna in the random shed on the side of the road, and found a car battery to power it. With this setup complete, you can connect with the bomb via the radio, which now tells you how many actions you have left before it explodes. Simply transmit the two codes, the bomb deactivates, and the game is over, with Buckaroo saving Arizona. The game is, at its core, another text parser that contains frustrating solutions to problems, with little clue how to solve them. The issue isn't that it relies on moon logic or completely irrational leaps of reason, well, maybe digging up a telephone cable to use as a climbing rope. It's just that it expects you to do things that you wouldn't think about doing, and doesn't give you any clue about doing so. Seriously, why would a table without papers on be suspicious? And why would this mean there's a safe hidden under the table? I suppose it adds on to the end of the film, giving you a chance to drive the jet car, but you don't really get much else from being Buckaroo Banzai. You don't interact with any of the other characters from the film, or indeed anyone, as the town has been evacuated. It seems a bit of a wasted opportunity to expand all the lore hinted at in the film, to be honest, but I suppose it's in keeping with it in that regard. So yeah, in short, there are better text parsers out there, and it also doesn't really embrace the film in any way, so it's pretty unremarkable. Okay, join me next time for another look at the weird world of licensed games. Who knows what we'll find attempting to cash in on already popular films and TV series. I guess we'll find out soon.